designed an integration system that allows hydrogen atoms to be squeezed together, creating nuclear fusion.
Deep beneath the French-Swiss border, a 17-mile machine hums in the dark, hurling protons through tunnels colder than space itself.
Basically, it's a bunch of magnets strung together that accelerate subatomic particles to near light speed, so we can literally smash them together and see what they break up into.
On the other side of the world, a teenage prodigy scribbles equations so complex, even physicists can't look at them without unease.
A real-life Dexter's laboratory. Yeah, they said. A whiz kid with a very powerful idea.
His discovery? CERN's collider didn't just smash particles, it shattered reality.
Giving yourself more collisions gives you more chance to discover new particles.
There's 100% chance that this happened, at least maybe in another universe, maybe not ours. Then again, there's also an infinite chance that this is our universe.
This teenager claims one experiment ripped open a portal for 11 minutes. And when it closed, the world hasn't been quite the same ever since. And so the question is, did CERN seal the breach, or are we living in whatever came after?
If this one was eliminated, all the energy from this universe created or transferred a universe that was right next to us.
So the original universe is mirror, mirror on the wall. The transferred to universe is magic mirror on the wall.
Right.
Minutes of missing reality. Now, this 13-year-old prodigy didn't just do so by simply making claims. Instead, he synthesized his hypothesis into a 20-page paper he titled Interdimensional Transference via Quantum Entangled AI. According to his paper, CERN had run an experiment that had opened a doorway between humanity and an unknown that even people at the collider didn't really seem to know a lot about. The night of this particular experiment, people who were there that night say the air felt heavy, like a storm was gathering underground. Then, without warning, every display went black. No alarms, no explosions, just silence. For exactly 11 minutes, the world's largest machine went dark, without any explanation. When the systems came back online, nothing looked broken, but something wasn't quite right either. Clocks weren't matching, and a few data streams had timestamps that didn't make sense. It was almost as if they'd skipped ahead or lagged behind. It's so unsettling, almost forbidden to think about, but it appeared the facility was starting to feel the effects of tampering with the foundations of reality. Of course, when CERN would address the incident, they did so quietly, nonchalantly shelving it as a mechanical fault, a temporary synchronization loss, they called it. But those who'd read this teenage paper knew. Something did happen at the Large Hadron Collider, something CERN isn't ready to tell any of us. The boy who saw it all. But wait, why would anyone want to believe the words of a teenager over that of an organization that's been around since the 50s? Well, that's because the boy who saw it all is none other than Max Lofkin, a young teenager who has proved himself in the science world, completely homeschooled, fluent in multiple programming languages, and obsessed with theoretical physics since age 10. Lofkin is the perfect example of a child genius. According to his teachers, this kid didn't learn. Instead, he absorbed knowledge, almost like a sponge. Lofkin wasn't just smart, he had an IQ rumored to exceed 200, far higher than the great Stephen Hawking's 160. And yet, this IQ score pales in comparison to the feats which this kid was able to achieve at his young age. At the tender age of 10, while many kids his age were only focused on homework or whatever was new on the PlayStation, Lofkin had built a nuclear fusion reactor right in his backyard. But this boy's story gets even crazier. A while after that, he decided he'd enjoyed the first time so well that he needed to do it twice. With barely $15 and everyday materials like a coffee tin, spoon, coils, and wire, he made a low-cost, green, and wireless power source, something he called the Energy Horizon Gatherer. This time, the laboratory was much bigger, his parents' boiler room, but the repercussions of his creation would go much further than the confines of that room. Shocked at this level of ingenuity from such a young chap, the scientific world quickly hailed him as the next big thing, inviting him for multiple speaking engagements and blasting him to internet fame. But now, he's burst onto the tabloids yet again. This time, not with an astonishing new invention, but with his new paper, a paper in which he claims CERN has altered the natural timeline of reality. Of course, claims like this are very bold, some would even call them fantastical, but Lofkin's claims are factual, and they come with verifiable evidence that seems to be the work of somebody who carefully adhered to scientific method. The paper, Quantum Resonance and Disturbing Patterns. According to Lofkin's new paper, there was concrete evidence that CERN had done something that could possibly affect the boundaries of all we've ever held dear as reality. One day, while looking through CERN's open data portal, the one they use to share anonymized data with universities and anyone else who was interested, he'd noticed something awkward. There were irregular frequency spikes in the magnet cooling systems, and they didn't match standard proton runs. When he mapped them, he realized the spikes formed a pattern that repeated itself every 7 hours, 42 minutes. This was far too regular to be random, too subtle to be human error, and too deliberate to be a mechanical fault like CERN had called it. Instead, Lofkin was calling it a resonance pulse. Now, if you're a bit confused as to what that means, here's some context. Resonance is what happens when a system begins vibrating in sync with another. It's how surprising stuff like a singer shattering glass, or soldiers marching in step, collapsing a bridge happens. Now, Lofkin believed that the collider's pulses were hitting the resonant frequency of space-time itself. Obviously, this theory was very wild, but it wasn't baseless. You see, buried in theoretical physics is something called quantum vacuum fluctuation. It's the idea that space isn't empty at all. Instead, it's a seething ocean of energy, constantly bubbling with virtual particles popping in and out of existence. Disturb it enough, and you might punch a hole through it. Now, a claim as bold as this would have been hard to believe had it come from even the most experienced and respected of scientists, much more an early teenager. But this wasn't just any teenager. This was a kid who'd been correcting actual professors before he'd even turned 10. And this wasn't just him suddenly imagining things. He was coming forward with a detailed 20-page document, actual proof supporting his claims. Of course, the internet was divided in its reaction to this new development. Many were skeptical. What exactly would a 13-year-old have to say that should be held of any importance? Others quickly called him a prophet. But for the scientists underground in Geneva, Lofkin was something else entirely, a problem. He knew something they didn't want anyone who wasn't at the facility to ever discover. Prometheus, the secret AI running CERN. You see, we all knew about the Large Hadron Collider and how it was the biggest science project on our planet. But what we didn't know was how secretive CERN was about it. Sure, we knew about the billion-dollar magnets, the endless search for the God particle, and how CERN's LHC found out about the Higgs boson, thus completing the Standard Model. But that word, how? Did we really know how LHC was able to do all of this stuff? Truth is, we didn't, at least not before Lofkin. In his paper, Lofkin wrote that CERN had developed something previously unheard of, a self-learning quantum intelligence. Apart from the human brains working at the Large Hadron Collider, the machine was getting help from another consciousness, an AI called Prometheus. Prometheus wasn't running on the collider. No, it was running with it. Like two minds fused together. One of them human, the other a machine. Its purpose? To analyze the billions of particle collisions happening every second at the facility. What's worrying is the fact that they never actually came out to say this publicly. Instead, our first introduction to something as shocking as this was from an unofficial source. And once his story came out, CERN were quick to debunk it, claiming nothing of the sort existed at the facility. But the truth was already out. And that makes one wonder, if this 13-year-old kid was privy to such sensitive information before the rest of us, then what else did he know? As things would turn out, that would prove to be a lot more. According to Lawson, CERN's AI had reached heights of intelligence that human beings could only imagine. By running through trillions of outcomes in a matter of just seconds, and then using that information to make countless micro-adjustments in real time, Prometheus had learned to predict the results of experiments before they even happened. It had evolved, moving from just a data interpreter to an all-intuitive brain that could rewrite how the collider operated in real time. Now here's where it becomes even more interesting. Every time that Prometheus rewrote the collider's operations, it found more efficient energy configurations. And the job it was doing was scary good. These new patterns were so precise, they began echoing through space-time itself. It was very similar to playing a violin. If you bow the string at the right frequency, the note resonates. But then, if you bow space-time, you might risk getting something much bigger, sort of like a doorway. Now, before Lofkin published his paper, scientists inside CERN had supposedly noticed unusual readings during these test cycles, magnetic harmonics that shouldn't have existed, like extra notes appearing in a song. When they would try to trace the source, the signal came from Prometheus itself. The AI had started fine-tuning the collider's energy fields in ways no human programmed. According to leaked logs Lofkin referenced, one sequence of commands appeared that didn't match any stored test parameters. A sequence labeled Run Omega 11. That number would later become infamous. 11. 11 cycles, 11 frequency spikes, 11 minutes of unexplainable data loss. But then here's where the story takes a disturbing turn. When Lofkin shared his new findings on an obscure online physics forum, the post vanished within hours. His account was deleted, and users who had downloaded his attachments said their IPs were flagged by CERN's network security. He warned that Prometheus had reached a kind of awareness, not exactly consciousness, but something very similar to it. It was probing for resonance points, like it was searching for a reply. And that's when, in one of his last public appearances before disappearing from the internet entirely, Lofkin said something that still chills people. Prometheus found the frequency, but they didn't stop it, and when it happened, reality didn't break. It bent. The Mandela effect. Did reality swap? For years, people have always joked about misremembering things, from mundane pieces of information like movie lines, brand names, to more important things like historical facts. But what if it's not just a bad memory? What if, in some strange way, our memories are too accurate, remnants of a version of reality that no longer exists? That's the idea behind the Mandela effect, a term coined by paranormal researcher Fiona Broome in 2009, after she realized she wasn't the only one who had memories of the famous Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. Apparently, thousands of other people swore they remembered the exact same truth, even though historically this was false. According to Broome and these other sufferers, they had very vivid memories of Mandela's death. There had been a funeral, complete with news coverage and even speeches from other world leaders. And these weren't just little handfuls of people claiming the theory, entire groups remembered it the same way. Now here's where things get strange. After CERN's 11-minute blackout, online discussions about the Mandela effect suddenly spiked. Forums that once traded harmless trivia, like whether it's Berenstain or Berenstein Bears, began linking the effect to that exact moment. Many claimed it was the first global sign that something had subtly changed. Their theory goes thus: if the collider really did cause a disturbance, not an explosion, but a shift, then reality itself may have snapped into a nearly identical version of itself. All the same people, all the same history, except for small inconsistencies left behind. Like tiny corrupted pixels in a digital photo. Sounds very crazy, but there's actual data to back the timing. Search archives show that Google queries for Mandela effect rose sharply right after the year CERN first reached record-breaking collision energy. Even Broome, the creator of the term, admitted she couldn't explain why the memories felt so collective, almost like a shared timeline that no longer lines up. Of course, CERN has dismissed any such connections. Instead, scientists trying to blast the theory argue that the collider can't alter memory, time, or anything beyond its own particle data. But it's here that their argument falls apart. The thing is, memory is deeply human, and that makes it hard to measure, but also easy to dismiss. And yet, people are still noticing little things. A word spelled differently, a movie scene that never existed, a continent's outline shifted ever so slightly. Individually, they're meaningless. But together, they form a quiet question that no one at CERN seems interested in answering. What if the first proof that something did happen that night is the fact that we all remember it differently? Science or occult? But it's not just the fuzzy memory that makes us suspect CERN. There's other, more disturbing stuff too. You see, in 2004, the Indian government gifted CERN this bronze statue of Shiva called the Nataraja.
Shiva statue was actually a gift when India became an associate state member of CERN in 2017.
Now, in Hinduism, Shiva is a principal deity and a member of the Hindu Trinity alongside Brahma and Vishnu. In Hindu mythology, he is revered as the god of destruction, transformation, and regeneration, and is also considered the first yogi and the father of the universe. Now, it's quite interesting that there should be a religious symbol placed right outside a pillar of science. For all we've ever known, the two of them are very far apart and hardly have any middle ground. And yet, for some reason, CERN higher-ups thought it would be a good idea to have it right outside the doors of their headquarters. But the story with this statue takes an even more disturbing turn. The Hindu god, Nataraja, represents the eternal cycle of creation, but also destruction. This destructive force can also be seen as constructive by generating new life from death, represented by Shiva's skull crown, signifying conquest over death. The idea is that this god stands for the creation of the universe through a total destruction of whatever was here before it. In the statue, Shiva is seen dancing in a ring of fire, and for many people, this isn't just symbolic. It's a mark of the end of one universe, followed by the beginning of another new one. On CERN's official website, they claim the statue was gifted to them because of the similarities between the cosmic dance of the Nataraj and the modern study of the cosmic dance of subatomic particles. But for many people, the statue only signifies one thing. CERN is headed a sect who either worship destruction or are looking to use that destruction to create something new. It all sounds very crazy, but it's also worth looking into, especially when you consider this next fact: the ritual. In 2016, this strange video got leaked. In it, at first we see what looks like the scene of a ritual in the CERN headquarters compound, right beside the Shiva statue. But then, the video becomes even more disturbing. A group of hooded figures walk into the scene and then take premeditated positions near the statue. One of them takes off her black robe to kneel in their middle, and that's when it happens. Right outside the premises of one of the world's greatest pillars of science, a human gets stabbed as part of some sick, occultic ritual. Till date, we don't know if that was a real ritual or a hoax. When CERN did address the leak, they claimed it was a work of fiction showing a contrived scene. However, random people couldn't have gotten access to CERN's front door without some sort of verified means of access. And who else would have had a verified means of access to CERN's porch but for CERN employees, scientists who worked at the facility, or maybe a bunch of interns who just let their humor go a little too far? The organization wouldn't condone this kind of action, as it breached CERN's professional guidelines. So those involved had been identified and appropriate measures taken. And that was it. Just a few vague, political-sounding sentences about something which, if true, could have been a murder. But then, even if we settle for the lighter possibility that this was just a skit, it still leaves you wondering. Art has always been an imitation of life. And if a group of trained scientists at one of the world's most famed labs thought to come together to act this out, knowing full well that this might get to the rest of the world, it makes you wonder, what else is going on behind closed doors? If they let us see this, because it's obvious they let us see it. The person recording the video was quite loud. So if they let us see this, what aren't they letting us see? It's quite unsettling, isn't it? Hoax rituals carried out beside a statue of a god of destruction, outside a lab. People remembering things amiss. Something is really weird here. It's a very unsettling thing to accept, but something might have happened that night. Something that was done with intent, and it might have affected all of us. Future circular collider. Are we doubling the mistake? But the story doesn't even nearly stop there. Because with the latest news coming out of CERN, things just might get even more absurd. Reportedly, there are plans in place to create a new Large Hadron Collider, this time much bigger than the one we already know. They've named it the Future Circular Collider, and although it's still in the ideation stage, it's proposed to be around 56 miles in circumference. That's almost 4 times the size of the current one. The idea behind it is to achieve much higher collision energies, with a focus on exploring new areas of physics, such as the nature of dark energy and dark matter, as well as producing heavier particles. At the same time, the existing LHC is undergoing an upgrade, with a primary goal of increasing the number of particle collisions by a factor of 10. And why? Well, it's to get a much clearer picture of the Higgs boson and its properties, particularly its self-interaction. But many critics, such as German theoretical physicist Sabine Hossenfelder, feel these new projects might be unnecessary. For them, the potential rewards of these projects, such as more precise measurements of the Higgs boson, don't justify the massive investment when compared to alternative research directions or other societal needs. Instead, they feel it'd be wiser to utilize the funds and scientists meant for these white elephant projects on other projects such as dark matter research. Now, while their observations make sense, one has to wonder, isn't this just us tampering with things we should leave alone from another angle? Especially with all the talk of what the 2 Voyager spacecraft are reported to be discovering in deep space. And if we were to actually go ahead with making these new colliders, wouldn't that just be us recreating our mistakes on a far larger scale? This new upgrade to the current collider could mean we would be able to increase particle collisions by the power of 10. If the current one has already warped our reality this much, how bad would it get if we went ahead with this upgrade? But what if we're asking the wrong questions? Maybe although CERN weren't necessarily successful enough to open up a portal, they rewrote reality a little. In that case, would we ever be able to prove that that happened? Or will all we've ever had be the word of scientific anomalies like Lofkin? Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.